quickly, I hope everybody can see my screen okay. This is the home page of the West-Wide Energy Corridor Information Center. It's a recycled use of the West-Wide Energy Corridor Programmatic EIS. We do have a PEIS archive here, so all of the information that would have been available on that website is still present. It's been changed to the past tense, but it's otherwise all still here. This homepage is going to provide a lot of updated announcements, including any meetings or webinars that we will have, also the release of any tools of that nature. It also retains an archive of the news features that go into the announcements. I do want to have you focus on the subscribe button. We do recommend that if you're interested in the corridors, in this regional review process, that you subscribe to the web address, because this is how we will be informing everybody. Not everybody looks at the website all the time, and so we will send out email blasts on occasion just to update you of some important events that are coming up. Also on this page, we have the stakeholder input form. You can click on this and get to that form. It's the best way to communicate with the BLM and the Forest Service on what your input is. All of that is available from the homepage directly. We also have a regional review page, which focuses on this process. This is where you will find all your corridor abstracts. For Region 1, they are all listed here. The map above can be clicked on and made bigger. And then also has a little bit of background information and some consideration for the regional reviews that were identified in the corridor study that came out in May of this year. All of these are things that should be considered as we go through the regional review process. Again, we also have we have a page on the corridor study and a page on the settlement agreement for some background if anyone is interested in those. It also is a way to access those documents. We also have a documents page, which contains a lot of that same information. The corridor study is here, some of the instruction memorandums for the field, the MOU based on the settlement agreement itself, and then the records of decision from the final programmatic EIS. Here's the record of decision for the forest and the record of decision for BLM. So there's a lot of information that's available in here, some background to help you get oriented. We also have a Getting Involved page. This will have all the updated information on what meetings have taken place. We will change this a little bit. We just finished our public meetings, all 3 of them. And so right now, the meeting agenda is just up here, but we will include all the presentation materials that were provided at those meetings, and those will be available for anyone who wasn't able to attend but would like to see those materials. So we will be posting them this week. They should be there by tomorrow at the latest. It also provides kind of the regional review sequence that Jim went over in his presentation, just to give people an idea if you are in one of these other regions when approximately information requests will go out and meetings will be held. So this site will help you with that. And it also has the online input form is available from this page as well, in addition to the home page. Now, for the 368 regional review process, we do have this web-based form. We have a corridor abstract guidance sheet, which I will get to in a minute, but it basically gives you some background on what we're trying to accomplish, what concerns have been identified, and then it gets down to and kind of what we're seeking. We're seeking concerns that were not identified in the table. We're looking for additional GIS data. We're looking for your input on the preliminary analysis that is included with those abstracts. Those abstracts are working documents. They are not final in any way, shape, or form. There will be a revision cycle in the upper right-hand corner that will indicate when things have been changed. And so all that initial analysis is strictly from the agency's perspective, taking a look at these at the first point and just kind of going from there to identify what they think could happen. We're looking for your input on those analysis conclusions and to see if you have other opinions, newer data, or something to expand on those analysis points. So those findings would then go forward into these suggestions or recommendations for adds, edits, and deletes. So, and then input on whether the abstracts provide sufficient analysis to recommend modifications, and then recommendations to themselves for additions, deletions, or modifications. So those are the things that we're looking for from your input. The abstracts themselves, it then goes into kind of the format of the abstract and the intent of each subsection, whether it be the introduction, the rationale, order of concern status. And I'll show you a filled out abstract in a minute that should help. Again, and then there's a table that, and this just provides the rationale behind what we were putting in each category. Okay, so the input form itself starts off with just entering your name and your email. The email is not something that we're going to publish or put out for other people to use. It's mostly for us in case we have a question about your input or need a clarification or a way that if you suggest new data, we can communicate with you in order for data sharing. It's not to be shared with the group as a whole. And if you are submitting on behalf of an organization, whether it be the Trails Association or Defenders or a county government or whatever the case may be, you would click yes and you would enter your organization name. If you just want to comment from your own individual point of view, you can click no. And then we have geographic scope. You know, right now we are looking for comments on Region 1. It doesn't mean you won't have general comments on the process, and please feel free to provide those as well. But if you are providing input on Region 1 specifically, we have three choices. One is a general Region 1 comment that may not be associated with a particular corridor. One is for corridor opportunities. You may have a suggestion for a corridor addition. But if you're talking about specific Region 1 corridors, then we have the system in place where we can link it to the map. And so you would select your corridor of interest, and we're using 3052. So this corridor right here goes through Arizona and California. And then you can click on the abstract, and this is another way. I showed you where you can get to the abstracts on the regional review page. You can get to them through the input form, and then Jim Kuiper will show you another way to get it through the mapper tool. But you can click on the abstract, read through it. We have a series of maps available. In addition to just an overview map, we have one with existing infrastructure. And depending on the size of the corridor, we may break it into two maps, as in the case of 3052. And then we also go into things like corridor rationale. Why is that corridor there? And it gets into who identified it, who identified the need originally in the programmatic EIS. Tells you a little bit about what's currently in that corridor and what some pending applications may be. Whether the corridor is a corridor of concern or not, those are those yellow lines, the red lines versus the yellow lines. If it was a corridor of concern, this is the area that would tell you what those concerns were. And then the corridor analysis, this check mark kind of approach is just to identify which topics have identified concerns within that corridor. And then the table will then go through each one of those. You do have an ID number, so as you're going through and reviewing abstracts, you may have a particular comment associated with a particular item. And this ID will help us make that connection so that we know exactly what item you're talking about. We provide information on agency, jurisdiction, the county, the primary concern that we're evaluating, and then where, and this is really important, where within the corridor this applies. So we're using this milepost framework, and Jim Kuiper will go into detail on that, but this is our ability to actually get at where within the corridor a modification might be needed. And then the review and analysis portion will talk about whether it's an opportunity, whether it's a potential constraint, and by constraint, we mean could preclude development within that corridor. And so it's a very strong sense of the word constraint. A number of these concerns might have, no, this is not a constraint, and the reason being there's mitigation measures that could be put in place, there's consultation that needs to take place, and there might be a path forward. But we're looking for your input on whether this nomenclature is even appropriate. Right now it's addressed as a binary to get the discussion going and to get feedback from people. But there is that shade of gray, and it's possible if, or it's not possible if, you know, those kinds of things. We want to spell those out a little bit better. So I'm going to go back to this. So if you pick a corridor, you look at the abstract, and you know exactly where your issues lie. If it's tortoise habitat or whatever, you can enter your milepost numbers here. That gives us an opportunity to connect issues with actual corridor locations, and that's something we'd like to include in the future in the mapping tool. And so again, the topics kind of mirror the abstract sheet. We have multiple ways for you to provide input. You can type your comment just in the comment box. You can attach a Word file. You can attach maps that are associated with your Word file. You're allowed up to 5 attachments with a maximum file size limit of 10 megabytes for the 5 files combined. So those are your options. And then you would hit the submit button. You would get a response from the webmaster that says, we've received your comments. It will give you an identifier number, and it'll allow you to circle back through to provide another comment. That's that. Finally, I get to the mapper tool, our maps and data page, and I'm going to have Jim actually take over, and he will show you the mapping tool. Jim?
Yep, I'm on, and just waiting to get the screen there. All right, so going back to the homepage of the site, there is a maps and data page. So the permanent link to this will be there. You can also find it several places right now. Here, this link, and on the top right, corridor mapping tool. And I just want to repeat also the subscribe box you see on the various pages of the website is important. If you haven't subscribed and you'd like to get any updates about the progress of the project, please submit your email there. So the Maps and Data page not only has the Energy Corridor Mapping tool, but it has a downloadable version of the GIS data, contain the corridor data, as well as a series of maps that should be useful to you. If you click this link, you have pop-ups enabled for the tool to launch successfully, but it'll typically open a tab or another window depending on your browser settings and which browser you use. I'm using Google Chrome, by the way. and it should launch for you. If it doesn't, then you might want to look in Google Chrome. You see a message at the top right here about block pop-up, and you can open that menu and either allow that single pop-up or pop-ups in general for the site. And I would recommend that you turn it on for the whole website so that you don't have any other blocked pop-up tabs. So we use that quite a bit. When the application opens, you see a map of the West. And these two panels on the left control the content that shows on the map. So the upper left panel is really a catalog of everything that's been added to the website. And it is under development, so we will be actively adding and updating information here, adding layers, as well as some planned improvements and new tools being added to the user interface. So the groupings are hierarchical, and you can open them up, and some of them are on multiple levels, like under boundary, there's the public land survey system subsection. Anything you add in this, any layer that you check will be added to the bottom panel and also appear on there. So the layers that are actively shown on the map are shown in the bottom panel with their map symbolization. And a subtlety of that is that some information is scale dependent. In other words, when you zoom in closer, it's visible, and when you zoom out, it turns off. A quarter mile closer, an example. So the subtlety of the website is that you won't see a space or a symbol under those when those layers are not showing. A few ways to use this more advanced. The bottom of this section has a toggle for the different base maps. You can turn the base map off entirely. Sometimes you might have enough GIS data on the map you can see everything you need to, and the base map's a distraction. Often when you're zoomed in close, the imagery is very useful. So you can see infrastructure, all kinds of detailed infrastructure in the imagery. Then we have the topo map or the OpenStreetMap. When you use the print tool, anything you have displayed in the main window would be included as you print. So you can kind of design a custom map. And the reason I brought that up at this time is that right now only the OpenStreetMap base map will be added to the PDF. So this yellow note at the bottom is referring to that, just to clarify what that's referring to. So here you can select a page format, give a title, give a resolution, output file name, and hit print. And once you do that, the contents of your current map will be put into the PDF, and that will be added as a downloadable link. So in Google Chrome, that appears at the bottom of the window in a little panel. You can move that PDF to your file system or just view and print it, whatever you like. Right. Some other things about this panel are that there's this gear icon. So I can take left click on that, and I can adjust the transparency of the layer. You might see the blue boundaries disappearing and reappearing as I adjust the transparency of the priority region boundaries. If it's a layer that only has limited extent on the map, you can use zoom to layer extent to find it. The map will zoom into the area where there is data for that layer. Many of the layers cover the whole West, so it's only useful in certain cases. And you can use the remove layer to drop it from the map. A quicker way to do that is to simply uncheck it from this group. That does drop it from this panel. So kind of a workaround for that is just to lower the transparency temporarily if you want to keep it here. Otherwise, you can always get it back by just finding it here. And if you know and you're a little bit more familiar with the content that's available, you can save time by typing a phrase or portion of a layer name in this top text box, and it'll filter out the ones that match that character sequence, and you can click it here here, if you have one layer that's obscuring another, you can click on the title of a layer and drag it up or down in the sequence. So the higher up on the list it is, the higher up on the map it will be. So state boundary is currently on top, and you can see that it's shown on top of that priority boundary. If I drag it underneath, then it will be only seen if that boundary is transparent. You can make some adjustments like that pretty easily. All right, so getting into a little bit more focused use of the tool, if you have a particular corridor in mind, you can zoom to it quickly by using the bookmarks. So right now, all the Region 1 corridors are listed in the bookmarks, and we haven't loaded bookmarks for the rest of those just because there would be so many. It'd be a little bit hard to sort through them all. But let's say we pick 3052 is kind of the one we're using right now as an example. I can pick that, and the map will zoom to that corridor. So another useful next step would be to click the View Abstract tool, and then if I click on this corridor, it'll take a moment, but it downloads the abstract for that and opens up a new tab. So now you can switch between and that abstract and look up some information and see what's already been compiled for that corridor. All right. So, for example, if you were looking through this and you see a particular issue, there's one I have in mind here. So, let's take this Coachella Valley milk vetch designated critical habitat. That's described as being on 3052, milepost range 0 to 6.9. So going back to the mapping tool, we know a milepost range, and we know that it's critical habitat. That happens to be data that we have in the tool. So one thing I'm going to do is type HAB for habitat. And we have areas and lines. I'm going to just turn the areas layer on. And these are the federally listed critical habitat for federally listed species threatened and endangered. Now, I'm going to turn off the image-based map and go back to the street map. It's a little distracting. So right now we don't have any corridor mileposts visible on the map, but we can see them in the abstract, and that's a good place to just, that's a good first use of the abstract, is just to get a sense of the mileposting. So here we see that that low numbered milepost is at the western end of the corridor, between 0 and 25. So I'm just going to manually zoom to that end. I can click this zoom box, left click, and then drag a box. You can already see that there's a series of red polygons that are corresponding with the corridor in that milepost range. So here's the end, and it continues this way. So here's a good time to use the info tool. So I can click that and click on this red polygon. Here I'm seeing the threatened and endangered species information that's showing on the map. So kind of go full circle, do something on the abstract, find the GIS data and the location on the corridor, and learn a little bit more about it. The info tool also provides information about any layers on the map below your click point. So here we can see that I happen to click on some state land there, and here we're in priority region 1. So I can open and close these sections to get information about those features. One of the things I want to point out is if you click on the corridor center line, it updates with that. I'll close some of these. So the center line has quite a bit of information coded on it, as well as the corridor polygons. But in particular, the end of it has the milepost range of that segment. So the center line is intermittent as it is only designated on federal land. So this little segment here The exact milepost is 0 to 0.4, however many decimal places you want to read off, and that can be used to find a more exact milepost. Another good use to kind of interpolate mileposts is the measure tool. So here, if I just go from 0.0 at the end of the corridor, and I stretch, follow the general pattern, say I wanted to find out how far down the corridor we are here, double-click to finish, and it's measuring 16.38, so that would be approximately mile 16.38. That's a way to kind of hone in on the exact, a little bit more exact mile posting as best you can measure. If you use a drop-down arrow, you can also measure areas, and that tool works the same way. So single-clicking, double-click to finish. If I turn it off, it'll remove those elements from the map. All right, I think I've covered all the major capabilities of the tool, and why don't I just pause now and see if there are any questions about it, and yield the rest of the time back to the meeting.
Jim, while people are typing, could you show them where the metadata is located, how they can get to that information?
Sure, I've overlooked that. Any of these layers, as you open up in the top panel, there's two icons on the right. So the one on the right is more just kind of an expanded name for the layer. Some of them are pretty obvious and short and might be the same as the name, and others are a little bit longer. And then this book icon will give you the metadata for that. Incidentally, notice that I've got the Energy Corridor section open, and the corridor concern highlighting is available in the tool, but it's not turned on by default, so you can add that if you like. And for an explanation of that layer, you click on this book icon, and here it opens up the metadata for you as a PDF in the pop-up window. And one thing toward the bottom, these are the fields. So what is that previously designated field mean? It means it was designated in the land use plan prior to Section 368 designation. So here, you might have a numeric field that you're not sure what units it's in. Try to make that as clear as possible, but metadata is kind of your last resort to figure out what units numbers are in, and lots of details like that. All right, any other questions?